What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks onto a talk show set and refuses to play along? When what was supposed to be a calm chat about his latest project turns into a clash of beliefs no one expected. Today, we're going to talk about the moment Kevin Costner's visit to The View completely fell apart. And trust me, you'll want to hear how this one went down. Kevin Costner steps onto The View set to what looks like a normal, warm welcome. The crowd is clapping, the hosts are smiling, and he's there to discuss his new Western series, a project he's clearly poured his heart and soul into. He takes a seat, greets Whoopi, waves to the audience, and everything feels like just another interview. Then Joy Behar jumps in with the first question. "Kevin, welcome back," she says with her familiar grin. "So, how much of your own money did you actually spend on this Western?" "Rumor has it, it's in the hundreds of millions." Kevin smiles politely, not thrown off. "Well, Joy," he says, "I don't usually talk exact numbers, but yes, I've invested a lot. When you believe in something, in telling stories that matter, you put your money where your mouth is. This isn't just a vanity project for me. It's about keeping alive a piece of American storytelling that's fading away." Joy leans forward slightly, her tone shifting. "But Kevin," she says, "and I mean this respectfully, are Westerns really what audiences want now? We're living in a modern world with modern issues. Don't you think that's a lot of money to spend on looking backward?" There's a low murmur in the audience. Kevin's expression tightens just a bit. "Looking backward?" he repeats slowly. "Joy, with all due respect, understanding where we came from isn't looking backward. It's recognizing the foundation of who we are, the frontier stories, the values of self-reliance and integrity. Those are timeless." Sonny Hostin jumps in, trying to calm things down. "I think what Joy means," she says, "is how do you make that connect with younger viewers who might not relate to that period?" But Joy isn't backing off. "No, Sonny," she says. "What I mean is, should we still be romanticizing an era that had serious problems? The treatment of Native Americans, the glorification of gun violence, the overly masculine and mostly white view of history." The room gets noticeably quieter. Kevin takes a slow breath, clearly choosing his words. "Joy," he says, "my films have always tried to show the truth of that time. Dances with Wolves didn't exactly hide how Native Americans were treated. I've spent my career telling stories honestly, not sugarcoating them." Joy shrugs slightly. "But you're still making Westerns." "Kevin, isn't that just nostalgia for a past that wasn't great for everyone?" Whoopi steps in. "I think we can agree Kevin's films have always handled those subjects carefully." Kevin raises his hand gently. "No, Whoopi, it's okay. I want to respond." He turns toward Joy. "You know what's interesting, Joy? You're questioning my decision to tell stories about American history, the frontier, the struggles of that era. But not every story has to be a political message about today. Sometimes a story can simply show truth, beauty, and tragedy together without being an endorsement of everything that happened." But Joy crosses her arms. "You're still choosing what to show and what not to show." "Kevin, that's the point." "Of course I am," Kevin replies, his tone sharpening. "Every filmmaker makes choices. Every storyteller decides what to highlight. But I'm not going to apologize for telling stories about courage, survival, and building something in hard times. Those are human stories. They go beyond politics." Sarah Haynes tries to steer things back. "Kevin, tell us about your cast. You've got an incredible lineup of actors." But Joy presses on. "I just think, Kevin, that with your influence and resources, you could be telling more relevant stories. Stories about what's happening right now, about the problems we face today." Kevin's face hardens slightly. "And who decides what's relevant, Joy? You? Studio executives? Twitter? He leans forward slightly. I make films about what I believe has meaning, about human nature, about character, about principle. Those things matter no matter what time period they're set in. The tension in the studio is now undeniable. The hosts exchange glances. The audience is silent, watching closely. Joy stares back at Kevin, clearly not ready to drop it. Human nature, character, principle, she says, her voice sharper now. Those sound nice, Kevin. But let's be honest, Westerns celebrate a kind of rugged individualism. That's part of what's wrong with this country today. That idea that everyone should fend for themselves. That we don't need community or shared responsibility. Kevin pauses for a moment, his jaw tightening, the camera catching the shift in his expression. The air in the studio feels heavy. Whatever was supposed to be a light-hearted interview has now turned into something much more personal. A clash not just about movies, but about values, legacy, and the very meaning of storytelling itself. Kevin narrows his eyes. That's not what my films are about, Joy. And I think you know that. Don't they, though? Joy challenges. The lone hero. The man who doesn't need anyone. The guy who solves things with a gun. Kevin's voice rises slightly. Now you're being reductive and unfair. Have you actually watched my work? Or are you just repeating cliches about the genre? The crowd gasps. This is not the kind of back and forth the View usually sees. Whoopi opens her mouth to speak, but Joy jumps back in. I've seen your movies, Kevin, and yes, they're well made. But that doesn't mean I can't question the ideas they promote. Question all you want, Kevin says, leaning forward. But don't tell me that stories about honor, sacrifice, and doing the right thing even when it's hard are somehow bad values. That's offensive. Joy holds her ground. I'm not saying honor and sacrifice are bad, Kevin. I'm saying the world you put them in, this Western mythology, carries baggage. And maybe instead of defending it, you should acknowledge that. Kevin's tone stays calm, but there's clear frustration behind it. Acknowledge what, exactly? That I should be ashamed for making movies about American history? That I should apologize for exploring how this country was built? With all its flaws and all its hope? There you go again, Joy says, gesturing. American history. How this country was built, for millions of people, Kevin, that history meant genocide, slavery, exploitation. So, yes, maybe you should think about that when you spend a fortune glorifying the frontier. Kevin's face flushes with emotion. I have thought about it, Joy. I've thought about it deeply. That's why I made Dances with Wolves. That's why I show native perspectives. That's why my characters aren't perfect heroes. They're flawed, conflicted people making impossible choices. But it feels like you want me to stop telling these stories altogether because they make you uncomfortable. Alyssa Farah Griffin tries to step in. Maybe there's a middle ground where we can appreciate history but still look at it with a critical eye. But Joy is locked in now. Let me ask you this, Kevin. When you make these Westerns, who are they for? Who's your audience? Kevin looks almost stunned. For anyone who wants to watch them. For people who care about storytelling, acting, cinematography. I don't make films for a demographic. But they attract a certain crowd, don't they? Joy presses. Older, mostly white, mostly conservative viewers who miss a simpler time. One that never really existed. The crowd reacts instantly. Gasps, whispers, some clapping, some shaking their heads. Kevin stares at Joy for a long moment. When he finally speaks, his voice is calm but cutting. That is incredibly condescending, he says softly, but there's steel underneath. You're basically saying that anyone who enjoys Westerns must be some kind of nostalgic conservative who can't handle the modern world. You're putting millions of people into one box just because of the kind of movies they like. And you're doing it to make a political argument. I'm making an observation, Kevin. Joy replies calmly. And I think it's a fair one. It's not fair. It's lazy, Kevin fires back. It's lazy thinking. You're taking a genre that's told so many different kinds of stories, that's evolved over generations, that's been used by filmmakers to explore everything from racism to corporate greed to the destruction of nature, and you're shrinking it down into a political stereotype. That's not analysis, Joy, that's just bias. Joy's expression tightens. Bias? I'm biased for pointing out that Westerns traditionally center on white male perspectives? You're biased for assuming that's all they can ever be, Kevin responds instantly. You're biased for deciding that stories about strength and frontier life have no value just because they don't fit your political lens. And honestly, Joy, I think you're being intellectually dishonest right now. The studio falls completely silent. Whoopi's eyes widen. The other hosts look stunned. Joy's mouth opens slightly, clearly taken aback. Intellectually dishonest? Joy repeats, her voice rising. Kevin, I'm asking you honest questions about the choices you make as a filmmaker. No, you're not, Kevin interrupts. You're not asking questions. You're throwing accusations disguised as questions. There's a difference. You've already decided that what I do is problematic, and now you're just trying to get me to admit it. But I'm not going to, because I don't believe that. Sonny steps in carefully. Kevin, I think Joy is just trying to start a conversation about representation, about whose stories get told in Hollywood. Then let's actually have that conversation, Kevin says, turning toward Sonny. Let's talk about it truthfully. Yes, Hollywood has historically shut out a lot of voices. Yes, we need more diverse stories and diverse storytellers. I completely agree with that. But that doesn't mean the solution is to stop telling certain kinds of stories, or to shame people who make traditional ones. You expand the conversation. You don't close it off. Joy leans forward again. But Kevin, when there are limited screens, limited budgets, limited attention, and you choose to make another Western, you're making a decision about what gets space and what doesn't. Joy, I'm funding this myself, Kevin says, frustration slipping into his tone. I'm not taking anyone's money. I'm not blocking anyone else from making their films. I'm using my own money to tell a story I believe in. How exactly is that taking something away from anyone? Because you have influence, Joy argues. You have power in Hollywood. And when someone like you makes Westerns, it tells the industry that this is what matters, that this is what should get investment. It keeps the same cycle going. Kevin shakes his head, firm and steady. That's such a cynical way to see art, Joy. By that logic, no one should ever make anything in a traditional genre again. No detective stories, no war films, no romances, no science fiction, because it might send the wrong signal. That's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's reality, Joy pushes back. The entertainment industry isn't a level playing field, Kevin. You know that. Of course I know that, Kevin replies, his frustration now clear. But the answer isn't to make me feel guilty for making the films I love. The answer is to support more filmmakers from all backgrounds telling their own stories. But that's not really what you're doing, is it? You'd rather criticize me for doing mine? Joy's voice gets louder now. I'm criticizing the choices you make, yes, because they matter. Because when someone with your platform chooses to spend hundreds of millions on Westerns instead of something more relevant, more urgent, more connected to the issues we face today, that's worth questioning. More relevant to who? Kevin shoots back. To you? To your politics, Joy? Not everything has to be about the crisis of the moment. Sometimes people need stories that take them somewhere else, that remind them of timeless values, that show them something beautiful, tragic, or meaningful beyond today's headlines. That's escapism, Joy says dismissively. It's art, Kevin fires back instantly. And you're sitting here telling me that the only art worth making is art that serves your political agenda. That's not criticism, Joy. That's propaganda. The word hits the room like a grenade. The audience reacts all at once, some clapping, others gasping, a few shouting. The other hosts start talking over each other, trying to calm things down. Whoopi holds up her hands, calling for quiet. But Joy and Kevin are locked on each other across the table, neither one giving an inch. Joy's face is red now, clearly furious. Propaganda? You're calling me a propagandist just because I question your choices? I'm calling it what it is, Kevin says firmly, not backing down an inch. You're saying art is only valuable if it serves a certain purpose, if it pushes a specific agenda. That's literally the definition of propaganda, Joy. Real art asks questions. It explores human nature. It shows us parts of ourselves. It doesn't just tell people what to think. And your Westerns do that? Joy challenges, her tone dripping with disbelief. Your stories about cowboys, gunfights, and the good old days, those are asking deep questions? Kevin's eyes flash with intensity. Yes, they are. They ask about justice, morality, and what people are willing to give up for what they believe in. They ask whether civilization and wilderness can exist together, whether progress always means destroying what came before, whether people can keep their integrity in a corrupt world. Just because those questions are asked through the lens of a Western doesn't make them less meaningful. But they're not the questions we need to be asking right now, Joy insists. According to who? Kevin demands, his voice rising again. According to you? You don't get to decide which questions are worth asking, Joy. You don't get to choose which stories matter. That's the whole point of artistic freedom. Whoopi tries again to step in. Okay, I think we all need to take a breath here. But Joy isn't finished. Kevin, let me be very clear. I think you're a talented filmmaker. I think you've made some truly important films. But I also think you're being defensive right now instead of listening to real criticism about the genre you keep working in and the messages it sends. I'm being defensive? Kevin repeats, incredulous. Joy, you've spent the last 15 minutes attacking my work, my choices, and my values. And you're surprised I'm defending myself? You invited me here to talk about my new project, but instead, you've turned it into an interrogation about whether I even have the right to make the movies I want to make. That's not what I did. Joy protests. That's exactly what you did, Kevin fires back. From the moment I sat down, you've been trying to make me apologize for creating Westerns. You've implied my work is outdated, that it attracts the wrong kind of audience, that it steals attention from more worthy projects, that it spreads harmful values. At what point were you actually going to ask me about the story I came here to discuss? Sarah tries one last time to steer things back. Kevin, why don't you tell us what this new project is about? What's the story? Kevin exhales, thinking about letting it go. Kevin looks back at Joy, his expression steady but intense. You know what, Sarah? I appreciate that, but I think Joy and I need to finish this talk, because there's something important here. He turns to Joy. Do you believe in artistic freedom or not? Joy looks startled by the direct question. Of course, I believe in artistic freedom. Then why are you sitting here telling me what I should and shouldn't make? Kevin presses. Why are you implying my choices are wrong? That I should make different movies? That the stories I care about don't matter? That's not artistic criticism, Joy. That's censorship pretending to be social awareness. It's not censorship to critique someone's work, Joy replies firmly. You're right, Kevin says, nodding. It's not. But there's a big difference between critiquing something and questioning whether it should exist at all. And that's the line you crossed. You're not saying my Westerns could be deeper or more balanced. You're saying I shouldn't be making them at all. You're saying the genre itself is flawed, that the themes it explores are outdated, that the people who love them are backwards. That's not film criticism, Joy. That's cultural gatekeeping. The studio falls silent. The audience is locked in, hanging on every word. Even the other hosts stop trying to mediate. Joy's voice softens slightly, but her eyes stay sharp. Kevin, I'm going to ask you one more time. Don't you think, considering everything happening in the world right now, with all the division, confusion, and the issues society is facing, don't you believe you have a duty to use your platform to tell stories that bring people together, instead of ones that glorify a romanticized version of the past? Kevin stares at her for a long moment before replying, Joy, my duty as a filmmaker is to tell stories that stay true to my vision. Stories that carry real artistic honesty and express something genuine about the human condition. My responsibility isn't to create propaganda for your political beliefs or anyone else's. If my westerns connect with people because they recognize something shared and universal in them, that's wonderful. And if they don't interest you, that's perfectly fine too. But I won't apologize for creating art that I believe in just because it doesn't fit your narrow idea of what's acceptable. Narrow! Joy's voice rises again, sharp and defensive. You're calling my view narrow? Yes, I am, Kevin answers directly. You're suggesting that if art doesn't serve some modern political message, it's not important. That's an extremely limited way to see what art can be. Art isn't confined to the times we're living through, Joy. It's about timeless themes, lasting questions, beauty, truth, and the deep complexity of human emotions. Those things don't lose meaning just because the story takes place in a historical setting. Joy exhales, shaking her head in frustration. I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this, Kevin. No, Joy, Kevin says quietly but firmly. I don't think we will. Because this conversation isn't really about westerns at all, is it? It's about whether artists have the freedom to create what they truly want, or if they have to seek permission from people like you who believe they know better. And I'm telling you right now, I will never ask for that kind of approval. His voice grows resolute. I'll make the movies I choose to make. I'll tell the stories that matter to me. And if you don't like them, that's your choice. But you don't have the right to tell me I'm wrong for creating them. The air in the studio feels electric. Whoopi finally steps in, her voice calm but firm. All right, we need to take a commercial break. Kevin, thank you for coming. Kevin removes his microphone with measured precision. Actually, Whoopi, I think I'm finished here. He turns toward Joy. You know why? Because I came on this show in good faith to talk about a film I'm proud of, something that means a lot to me. Instead, you turned this into an interrogation about my creative choices. I don't need that. And honestly, your viewers don't need to see an ambush dressed up as an interview. Joy rises from her seat, matching his intensity. Kevin, if you can't handle hard questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing press tours. Kevin turns to her one last time, his voice calm but cutting. Tough questions are fine, Joy. I've faced them my whole life. But what you did here wasn't honest questioning. It was an attempt to shame me for not making the art that fits your beliefs. And I won't accept that, from you or anyone else. He walks off the set as the audience erupts in noise, some clapping and cheering in support, others gasping or booing. Voices overlap in a wave of chaos. The camera lingers on Joy, frozen in disbelief and irritation. The other hosts exchange uneasy glances, unsure how to proceed. Whoopi tries to regain control, urging calm, but the moment has already slipped away. And that's how one of Hollywood's biggest stars walked off the View. During what was supposed to be a simple, friendly promotional interview. No one could have predicted that a discussion about westerns would ignite into a fierce debate about creative freedom, censorship, political correctness, and who truly has the right to decide which stories deserve to be told. So, what do you think? Was Kevin justified in defending his creative freedom so passionately? Or did Joy have a fair point about responsibility and representation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because we'll be diving into more shocking and unforgettable celebrity moments just like this one.